Hello, everyone out there on the interwebs. This is another episode of Fighting the Void. It is I, Ginger, here with another fun and exciting interview with, this time, it is one of my favorite long-term internet friends. It would be none other than Wookiee Steve from the Star Wars Reporter. And he and I go way, way back to the baby days of YouTube and podcasting and everything. And we've been doing this off and on together for, frankly, a decade or more, actually.
At least 100 years.
At least 100 years. I mean, you think you grew that beard overnight? No, okay? It did not happen overnight. And today we are taking a little bit of a break from all the coronavirus talk and everything. No, we're not going to talk a whole lot about the COVID madness and whatever else, okay? Because frankly, my blood pressure has been through the damn roof, and I'm borderline ready to go storm the Bastille, so I need a break, okay? I need a break. So,
Here.
Fortunately, the Pentagon provided us with a perfect opportunity, an excuse, if you will, to take a break from covering in minute detail everything that goes on with this stupid little Wu flu. And yes, it's the Wu flu. I don't care what you want to call it. I don't care. Epstein didn't kill himself. Eric Tremello's the whistleblower. Boom. Suck it, Susan. Anyway, and the Pentagon gave us an excuse to talk about something else by declassifying some footage that we all saw like a year ago.
Yeah.
But they officially, and they confirmed it as legit previously, but they officially declassified it. So that the reasoning is a little odd to me, that they just, I don't know, it something about, we didn't want people speculating, so we just, and there's nothing classified in there, so which
right.
in itself was interesting. So we're going to discuss that, and we are going to go and we're going to very quickly leave the realm of fact and engage in wild and rampant speculation because why not? And it also turns out that this is a perfect companion episode to yesterday's episode of Blunt Talk, when Crystal and Red talked about a variety of supernatural, mythological, cryptozoological creatures. So that wasn't planned, actually. That's just sort of happened.
Oh.
So it's fun and exciting that all of this came together. Apparently the aliens want us to do this. So get your tinfoil hats on, get heated up, and let's get ready to roll. Steve!
Eric!
Welcome, sir.
Finally, you have me on.
Finally, I know. Yeah, I know. You've been messaging me daily for months. And I've tried to ignore you, but alas, I can only say no to that beard for so long.
You can't avoid it. You can't.
I can't. That extremely well-oiled and well-combed, tended beard that just screams manliness.
This whole lockdown, this is where it all came from.
I know that's not true.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So you followed the whole alien thing a lot more than I have.
Right.
It used to be a thing that I paid a lot of attention to when I was just a wee little ginger. But obviously I just kind of keep, it's one of those things that I kind of keep half an eye on and look at every now and again. I'm like, what's going on with the Greys these days? I don't know. And like every good American, I love a good alien invasion movie. But other than that, I haven't been terribly steeped in it. We've discussed it before. But again, they provided us a wonderful excuse to go back again. So, Steve, they released this footage. What are we looking at in this footage? Well, and if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and bring some of it up while you're talking, because we have that technology.
Well, you said it. This has been out for a year. It was kind of a unofficially verified leak by the Pentagon, and now I guess to take our minds off it, because everyone's already seen Tiger King and everyone's starting to pay attention again. So they've kind of said, okay, officially, here is the footage. And you had said it to me before, they said the excuses to make sure people got their information straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they showed a few of these videos of we're looking at it right now. The jets tracking.
If I remember right, it was actually
these
footage
items.
from the F-18's nose cam.
Yeah. There's this other one where it's kind of tumbling. I think it comes up, and that's where the change was, I guess, from the official to what the year was, or what was shown a year ago.
Okay, yeah, you'll see it. This is a fairly long video clip here, and this is the famous Tic Tac craft that many people have discussed. Okay, we've got some audio.
This one here is my favorite one here, where they're actually I forget what the radar is called, and what's his name, Commander Favor, was actually on Joe Rogan. He tells the story. He was actually on this other video. I forget what the producer that did the Bob Lazar documentary, and they had him talking on that. It's an amazing story. And he was out initially and spotted this Tic Tac thing, and they couldn't catch it. And then his group came in and landed, and the second group from the aircraft went up, and it was them that spotted that TikTok and were able to get the tracker on it. And this one here, this shot
right here, actually, I find very interesting because it goes from it doesn't look anymore like it's a strictly an oval shaped object.
Yeah,
it almost looks from this particular angle like the classic alien flying saucer shape, which is I find that interesting, to say the least. I'm not sure why I find it interesting, but I do find it interesting.
Yeah, and it's actually tumbling, and the pilots, how they're talking. I always loved how the pilots are talking to each other, because back in the day when I watched Top Gun, I'm thinking, oh, that's all cool, but it's a movie. And then you realize, oh, they all kind of talk like that in real life when they're, doing 400 miles an hour.
Right.
So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But how they're reacting to this, and I know at one point in this part, the one guy says, there's like a fleet of them, and then makes mention that it's probably a drone or something. And I think that's where the controversy is coming in recently, where people are saying, oh, it's a drone. I guess that's the end of it, because he said it. As a pilot, he's probably trying to figure out what it is, because it's going faster than them, X amount of knots against the wind and rotating. It's like, it's kind of something, like, what is it?
Yeah, and I know I see Mattis in the chat. In the chat is talking about how it. I saw this a few years ago, and this stuff originally came from I want to say 2016 or something like that. Is old? That's how old this footage actually is. So I'm sure it's been floating around there on the internet for a while. Now, you talk about how the pilot was speculating that it's probably a drone, which is frankly the simplest explanation. And we'll get into pros and cons of that here pretty quickly.
Right.
But it's interesting, though, if it's a drone and they just declassified it. Actually, let's get right to the pros and cons right now. So they declassified it. So let's speculate a little bit here. What does that not tell us about the drone theory, or any theory really? Because the fact that they officially declassified it itself is interesting, no matter what we're actually looking at.
Right. Yeah, it seems like they're doing more of the like Obama, I think, released a bunch of documents, and they're just kind of trickling like more and more, where these videos are coming out. that they're releasing or
Yeah.
documents, and it's like, why are they doing this now? Because there's no explanation with it. It's not like when they released this, they said we wanted to release this to prove that it's the drone that we have. They didn't say anything.
Right. No, they didn't. They just said that there's nothing classified in it, which tells me either that whatever it is going to come out and be perfectly clear relatively soon anyway. Nope. Dang it. That's fine.
Right.
And or what it tells me is that they're like, you know what? This thing is so crazy, so over the top, unexplainable. No one's gonna figure it out anyway.
Right.
That's what it tells me. It tells me one of those two things. Either they're like, it's going to be abundantly clear anyway, or no one's gonna figure it out based on this. So I don't know which. I have no idea which one it is, but it's definitely one of those two. And let's discuss let's discuss pro drone for a minute.
Okay.
One is definitely, we haven't had a clearly significant jump in any sort of aerodynamics technology in a very long time.
Right.
Really, the last major jump was the jet. First put into combat usage by the Germans in World War II. We quickly caught up to that and surpassed it. And we've had numerous incremental steps forward in that same technology since that. The most recent being the F-35, which is a fine piece of machinery. I don't know if it's as maneuverable as the much older F-16 yet, but it's still a mighty fine piece of aeronautics technology. However, it's nothing like what has been described, seen in this video, with the way, with the apparent speed it's able to move at, the size, the shape. Why did wow, all my screens just went dark all of a sudden. Very strange. Huh. Interesting.
You're good. We're still, I can see you.
Okay. Yeah, that was very, very strange. Okay. So, again, not a significant, obvious leap in technology for decades now. The last time we had an extremely fast craft was the good old SR-71 Blackbird.
Right.
Mach 3 plus.
Right.
That was retired a couple of decades ago now. And that was the fastest beast on the planet, as far as anybody knows. And the speculation, and of course, at the same time, there's a very good reason you could say that we haven't had a more significant leap in aeronautics technology, because at this point, the limit in terms of acceleration and maneuverability isn't the plane anymore. Even with conventional technology, we could go farther. The limit is the human body at this particular point.
Right, of course.
It's not the tech. It's the human body. That's the limiting factor. So it makes perfect sense that they're exploring, that they are and have been exploring for a very long time, automated means, non-human flight. We know that they're actually very advanced with this, with the drone technology that's been prominent in combat now for, again, a couple of decades by now. And it makes perfect sense that they've been moving farther and farther on that behind the scenes.
Sure.
And I've done a little bit of research for one of my editing and writing clients a while back into drone technology, and they are way beyond the Predator drone already. And that's public information that's out there. The Predator drone is just the one that's fairly cheap and affordable, and it's already prevalent out there. So just keep making more of them.
Right.
But the technology already exists for stuff way beyond the Predator. Makes the Predator look, makes the
Right.
Predator look like a P-51 Mustang, compared to the F-16.
Right.
Right. So
right.
is
Technology moves forward, and I get all
exactly,
that, right? And
exactly. So
we're not always going to see it.
It's certainly possible that they do have some other non unconventional means of propulsion that they've been working on and just been trying to get a handle on for however long.
Right.
These things have existed. This footage has been out there, like we said, for years.
Right.
Already floating around out there, and there have been other reports of similar things for a very long time. So could be. Now,
could be.
Give me the con.
Give me the con.
Yeah.
If
not the pro alien, the con drone.
The not a drone. Yep.
Yeah.
If we had technology where they could do these speeds with, like, if there was this, because I always said this, if there was this technology out there that was hidden, the secret government has, making these highly advanced drones, planes, whatever. The technology that you would have, that these things have, and how they're flying, whoever had that could just go to their enemies and just wipe them out. They just have 100 drones and just go and wipe them out. They couldn't see it. They can go 0 to infinite speed instantly. You didn't see it here. There was the Tic Tac one.
Yeah.
According to the Commander Favor, he said they were observing it when he was initially out, and they were circling it. It was just above. It actually came out of the water even at one point, and it was floating, and they were circling it in whatever they were flying off.
I think they were flying
the aircraft carriers. Right. And he said when they tried to he was trying to get closer to get a visual of it. It just accelerated so fast. And he said he's seen planes doing Mach 2, but you could track it. He could look, it's going Mach 2, but he could see it.
Right.
This he couldn't see. It was instant. So if the US government had this technology, they had 100 of these 40-foot Tic Tac things that can do God knows what with possibly anti-gravity technology. They could just go over and stop China. They can go over and stop Russia. It would be so easy. Where's that energy? Why is it not being used in your society to power all infrastructure? Well, and I understand the whole, because the oil companies and blah, blah, blah. I get it.
There's a much less conspiratorial answer to that. And that's the fact that it's not ready. It's not ready for prime time yet. We're just working on it. And the part of the pro drone side of that would be it's actually getting close to ready for prime time. And they actually sent it out to specifically to be found by these fighter patrols to see exactly, what do they see? How well can they track it? How well can it actually, what will they report essentially as this thing maneuvers around it? How well can it really maneuver in an environment, and how well can our planes respond to it? What do they even have a chance in hell of being able to work with this thing, be supported by it or support it, whatever, which makes sense, which goes right back to what I was saying, that they declassified it because maybe it's about ready for prime time and they're about ready to start deploying these things.
Right. I mean, on the other side of that, some of the best information that you can do if you want to hide it is to just release it and say it's something else. Because for the government or the Pentagon to make no comment or just say, nope, that's not it, and try to make up an excuse for it is going to make even skeptics go, what is all this about? So I think it was their best move, especially now that everyone's in lockdown to distract them, to say,
Right.
yep, here you go. Here are these videos, and it's all official and we're behind it, with no
Well, they
explanation
didn't
for
see.
it.
That's the thing. They didn't say that they're behind it. They just said, "Yes, it's real."
Right.
That's all they said.
It's what I mean, but like it still, it's a way for people then to go,
Mhm.
oh, okay, well, they're not hiding it, so it's got to be a drone or a secret, like a
Maybe.
some kind of new military plane or
Which
something
even
that they
so
don't want people to
still
know about.
tells me that whatever it is going to come out soon.
I think I said this to you months ago when we had a
Mhm.
little talk about it, and I thought disclosure seems to be the key word out there. Disclosure's coming soon, one way or another, of something.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say, because I mean the government, when it comes to this sort of thing, usually if they don't want you to find out something, they'll just deny.
Mhm.
And it usually works pretty well.
Oh, for
Let's
sure.
be honest. It usually works fantastic because they can just say, no, especially these days. They throw around the conspiracy theorist term, the same way that, people throw out the term racist. It gets thrown around so much, so liberally, that it kind of loses meaning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's still works well enough with enough people that people are like, yeah, it's nothing, whatever.
I know.
Especially when we're already so distracted by so many other things.
Well, it's like this kind of stuff used to be called debate or questions. Now it's conspiracy. It's like,
I know.
you can just say, oh, what was that in that video? Or what was that in the sky I just saw? I'm not saying it's aliens. Then why all of a sudden you're calling me a crazy person?
Aliens! Conspiracy theorist!
Exactly. All of a sudden I'm a crazy wacko because I just said, oh, that was weird. What was that? Can someone explain that to me? Say I upload a video. Then all of a sudden it's like 1,000 comments how much I'm a wacko or something. It's like,
right.
Can't I just, like, no one can ask a question anymore.
No. And that is one of the most worrisome developments of the time in which we live. Thou shalt not ask any sort of questions whatsoever. But that gets us right into the stuff that spikes my blood pressure. So, okay, so essentially the argument against it being a drone is that this thing is apparently stupid advanced. If we had it, we would have already taken over the world with it anyway.
Yeah.
Essentially. Or the Chinese would take over the world with it.
Yeah, if it wasn't yours.
Whoever has it.
Yeah.
Whoever's it is would already be using it. Or, again, the counter argument to that is it just hasn't been ready for prime time, or there haven't been enough of them to be effective. Because, just one doesn't matter.
But what a great deterrent. Even if you had one, let's say you had two. Let's go crazy and say you have two Tic Tac F somethings, whatever you want to call it, even if you have just two, why not go right away, especially in a time like this where there's a lot of saber rattlings going on around the world. That might make people shut up. The bad people that are like targeting ships of certain other countries
ready for prime time and has a weapon system, because that's the kicker right there. You need a weapon system on it, otherwise it's just a spy craft. A very good spy craft, but that's all it is.
Right. Well, I mean, in these videos, no, none of these American planes were shot at or attacked or disabled. So yeah, maybe they don't have weapons on them.
That actually, I hadn't thought about this before, Steve, but it's maybe that is the reason that isn't ready for prime time, because they haven't been able to get a weapon system to be able to work with it. Because let's just go ahead and, again, engaging in rampant speculation here. What if it is some sort of propulsion system that relies on gravity manipulation in some way? Who knows? I don't know. I have no idea how that would work. but let's say that it does,
Right.
for sake of argument. However, it's manipulating the gravity around it could have a huge effect on any sort of projectile weapon that you would fire from this thing. And all of our weapons so far are still projectile based. We do not have, as far as we know, an energy based weapon system that's actually deployed and ready for combat.
Okay.
So maybe that's why. Maybe we've actually had this thing, that we've had this propulsion system and we've been able to control it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't been able to put a weapon system on it, so it's been effectively useless.
Right. You could take that anti-gravity technology and use it in a different way that could be used as a weapon.
You could, theoretically.
How big are those Patriot missiles?
I don't know.
Like 40 feet at least?
Maybe, sure.
Do you think?
Yeah,
so attach anti-gravity technology to something like that. Doesn't have to be a nuclear warhead. And you send it from California, the West Coast, and it launches from the US and makes it to China in a minute and a half.
Yeah, but let's just go ahead and but then just go ahead and say this thing, whatever it takes to build it, it costs as much as a B-2 bomber, which when they came out,
right,
again decades ago, was $500 million.
Yeah, then I'm sure it's
at which point more. You're like, you know what? We've got cruise missiles for that.
It's still a nice deterrent when you can do your own missile tests, like you see, North Korea or China doing. You're like, hey, check this unarmed thing out. Bam! It's already over. Wherever.
And who knows? Maybe that's a little bit what's going on with declassifying the footage.
Sure, and maybe that's the first step, right?
And who knows? Maybe that's one of the things that's happening behind the scenes is they're like, you know what? We're going to let the Chinese know that this is real, and they know it's not theirs, so therefore they're going to assume that it's ours, whether it is or not. Which it probably is. I mean, honestly, who else has got the capacity to develop something like that? Not many people. Not many countries have the capacity to develop something like that.
Yeah. Well,
So, we've discussed the drone angle, pro and con, a little bit, and
right.
And let's say we're no matter what we are, whether we're pro, whether we're con, there's a lot of ifs involved here.
Of course,
this
is just fun. We can speculate. It's so much fun. The Pentagon released it officially, so why not?
So why not indeed? So give me, since this is your realm, give me the pro-alien side, and I'll do the con.
Pro-alien side. These aren't the only videos out there that are, not obvious fakes. You know what I mean? There's other pilots besides the pilots in these videos that have talked about the technology or engagement or et cetera, right? Since who knows when. So I kind of look at it as I understand about the technology moving forward and stuff that we're not seeing because, again, they're not ready. Or maybe they don't want you to know until they have to use it in the war because then that country you're going to fight is not ready for the TikTok, for the Tic Tac bomb coming in or something.
Right. So
for me, the technology just seems to be even too far ahead for even our smartest scientists to explain, to the point where they've just been explaining other, witnessed events as swamp gas or weather balloons or any of this other kind of stuff because they can't explain it. Because in their minds, it's like, well, that's impossible. So that person it was a mistaken identity in some way. But when you're looking at veteran pilots, like that one that's with the Tic Tac one, Commander Favre. He was
Mhm.
like Top Gun graduate.
Yeah,
He was decorated commander, et cetera, et cetera.
he's highly credible.
He's credible to the point where when Joe Rogan started his podcast a long time ago, he was very conspiracy. We never made it to the moon. Then he backed off all that and said all of it's crap. Aliens aren't real. And two things brought him back. It's the only thing he's kind of, he'll grudgingly admit that he's back. The only conspiracy that he's back in is the alien thing because of two people he had on his show different times.
Mm-hmm.
One was the commander talking about this and the technology and their experience and stuff like this. Now, just because he's a Top Gun pilot doesn't mean he has access to knowing anything that technology, anything that they're building in the military. Maybe they were sending it out to mess with his squadron. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
Send the X-21 out there and harass. Was it the Nimitz? I'm not sure what ship he was on.
I can't remember what ship he was attached to. I don't recall.
They always say the Nimitz, so I'll just say the Nimitz or whatever aircraft carrier he was attached to, and they're just messing with pilots, like what you were just saying, right? But it just seems, for me, it just seems like it's too out there with the technology, anti-gravity. With technology, we could reach other planets without having to do this dated rockets from Russia or Kazakhstan or whatever it is and sit up in this junky space station and come back down. And it's like, if you have this, you could get out of orbit easy and you could just keep going.
Theoretically.
Yeah. Again, as far as we
know, we're keying in on the whole anti-gravity. Who knows? We actually don't know.
Right.
It could be magnetic in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
So someone or another manipulating the Earth's magnetic field. Who knows? I don't know. We're rampant speculation here.
Yeah, I just don't think that we're at that technology. Okay. I think that it is so far advanced, and you have people like these pilots who have seen, well, probably most everything in the sky, who are blown away by this.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a difference in technology that's somewhere between the F-22. That's kind of like the difference in technology between a hot air balloon and the F-22.
Oh, sure.
Which still, that's a technology gap that we've clearly made. Mm-hmm. We clearly have progressed very far from the first guy to ever make a fire. Which, I mean, he would look at an F-22 and, probably think it was Chariots of the Gods to bring something up.
Right.
Now that doesn't, however, if there was an F-22 flying around when the first guy made fire, that's not an unreasonable conclusion. To be fair, clearly, yeah, he didn't have the technology to make the F-22 and wasn't going to develop it for a few million years. So, okay. Right. So if we're looking at that kind of a technological jump, possibly, we could be looking at something that is extraterrestrial. However, technology has also been moving along much faster as we develop more technology. It becomes easier to develop more technology in general. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
As we progress farther, it's easier to progress faster.
Right.
That doesn't now. I'm going to do the con alien thing. The con to the alien thing is, frankly, how long it takes to do interstellar travel. Because even if, okay, let's grant we've got anti-gravity technology, we can accelerate faster and everything, you're still limited by a little something called the speed of light.
Okay.
We have no theory anywhere that even suggests that you can go faster than the speed of light. I mean, I'm sure there's some fringes out there and everything that are suggesting it. And yes, you got people that talk about wormholes and such. However, that is extremely, extremely speculative. speculative. As far as any technology that we can know or imagine, you're still limited by the speed of light, which means even if you're going to Alpha Centauri, it's still going to take you it's going to take you more than 4 years to get there. Because here's the thing, you can't even just get straight to the speed of light. You have to accelerate to it. Even if you can accelerate quickly, you can't accelerate that quickly. Laws of physics don't allow it. Let's just roughly say it's going to take you a decade for a one-way trip to the closest extrasolar planet that we're aware of. Because Alpha Centauri does have a planet, as it turns out. And as it turns out, I think it's in the habitable zone of that binary star system. So maybe.
Right.
But the time involved is huge. And I think honestly 10 years is probably generous. Because remember, you don't just have to accelerate, you have to slow down as well. You know, you can't just go the speed of light from point A to point B. You've got to speed up, you've got to slow down, and that's true regardless of what technology you have. I don't care if you're doing gravity manipulation or if you're doing old school, I've got gases coming out of a rocket nozzle. Doesn't matter.
But we're also thinking in what we know, right?
No, because
on Earth we've said this is...
You still have laws of inertia.
Right, but it's the laws of inertia that we know of, right? That we know of. And that changed from the early days of the space program to now, right?
It's the laws didn't change. Our ability to understand them increased.
Right, but there has to be other things out there in technology. Like for one thing,
I'm not saying that we're not going to get anything, but still, the time involved, and even if so, let's say you can do instant acceleration, you can do instant deceleration without completely destroying your vessel.
Right.
Let's go ahead and say it. It's still 4 years minimum, bare minimum.
Well, going back to Faber, he's the only one that's connected to one of these videos. His witnessing this and the ship witnessing it as well with the radar. Well, they actually couldn't really see it at there's kind of a long story, but when it took off instantly, it was in a different area closer to their ship. Like seconds later, because the ship called and said, "Guess where your thing is? It's over here." So that was.
But there's a huge difference between accelerating from 0 to 100 and 0 to the speed of light.
Well, we're talking 0 to 1,000.
Sure.
It seems like, you know what I mean, to go from there to there. And why I keep bringing up the anti-gravity technology, it's because going to a different story, it's that Bob Lazar story that kind of made a resurgence because he was kind of convinced or tricked, whatever you want to say, to come out and talk about it again with that documentary guy. And again, I'm bringing up Joe Rogan. Fascinating talk with Joe Rogan about everything. And I'm kind of lost in the science of it because, I'm just not a scientist, but he explained kind of the technology. Like he
explained that stuff he couldn't understand.
He was saying that he worked at Area 51. It was like a different part of anyways, he was hired to help reverse engineer alien ships that they had acquired, et cetera, et cetera. And he was saying that they use anti-gravity. The one video that you really thought was interesting, where it was rolling, it was flipping. He actually said, yeah, that's what happens. It doesn't, like the rounded part, it doesn't fly like that. So when it was like this, it was kind of cruising, but the underside, what we think would be the underside, it actually turns, and that's how it accelerates. And then the gravity, it's actually spreading the gravity in front of it. I can't explain the science of it.
We don't know.
But it goes faster and faster and faster as it goes. And it doesn't, according to him, the technology doesn't need to slow. And it just, now maybe getting from where they live to here, it's 2 to 4 years. But I mean,
Man,
we're
it's at
planning to
least
go to
4 years.
Mars, and it's no big deal for
It's
us to put people on the ship.
It's a bare minimum of 4 years. Bare minimum.
Sure.
Even granting instant acceleration to speed of light and instant deceleration, which just no. But for sake of argument, let's just say 4 years minimum from the closest place. Remember, that's the closest place. The next closest, I don't know how far it is. It's, way farther, way longer, which means that you're talking about a civilization that is cohesive enough, is capable of sufficiently long-term projects to send a random scout craft here for who knows whatever reason, presumably to study, because if they wanted to conquer, if they had that kind of technology, it'd be super duper easy.
Right.
Obviously the thing would be to, like I said, obviously it would be study. It's not they're coming to go Independence Day on us, because again, that'd be extremely easy. My counter argument to the alien thing is that the time, the resources necessary to just do it for purposes of study seems highly remote. Even granting, like a level of technology that this craft certainly doesn't prove. It might suggest, but it does not prove by any way, shape, or form. So that kind of leaves us with, and then of course you can get, there were a couple other things you said that I wanted to that I wanted to key on, but dang it, I forgot.
Go write it down when I'm talking.
The main thing though is the time, the resources, and everything involved certainly would imply an extremely advanced and coherent civilization, which might exist, but we certainly have no particular reason to believe that it does. It's essentially you choose to think it does, or you choose to think it doesn't. And again, it would take, put it this way, humanity ain't nowhere near there. And it would take a civilization. It's not nation-based. It's global-based. It would be a global civilization that can pull something like that off.
All right.
It has to at least be that.
Right.
Bare minimum.
And that might be, let's say that there is other alien races out there, other species out there. I guess they wouldn't call themselves aliens, but you know what I mean? So there's other species out there on other planets.
Yeah.
And they're obviously, if you believe the pictures, the grades or whatever people are drawing pictures of being abducted by, they're clearly different than us. Mm-hmm. So, maybe their species can all get along in kumbaya. We're humans, on this planet, we have a little trouble with that, or we haven't.
Well, we haven't
reached that yet.
See, right away there, you touch on the philosophical and the theological. Would their nature be fundamentally different than our own?
Well, clearly, if they've gotten together to do that, they got the technology. They come to a backwoods planet like ours, comparatively, if this is all real, and not blasted us, or sorry, I like your term, gone all Independence Day, or that's easier to say than War of the Worldy, Independence Day on us. And I think you and I had that conversation a long time ago. Why haven't they come down and just or landed on the White House lawn and said, "Hey, guess what? We're your rulers. What are you going to do about it?" Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. Independence Day, look what we did there.
Yeah. Right. We're here for your minerals and your water and whatever else it is that we have.
All that jazz. Yeah. But maybe that's not the purpose, right? It's like, we have that little village in the middle of nowhere that hasn't seen the technology that we had, say, in the 50s and 60s. And they're like, oh man, look at this. Look at this canoe I built. I'm the greatest person in my village. I'm like the greatest warrior. No one will ever. And then some stupid archaeologist shows up in his giant research yacht and all this technology and stuff. He's like, "Hey, I'm Joe from the US. I want to learn about you people."
It's entirely possible that they would look on us, the way we look on some primitive tribe in the Amazon.
Mhm.
And,
Well, yeah.
we show up to study every now and again,
Mhm.
but otherwise we pretty much leave them alone.
Right.
And, that's possible, but that doesn't say anything about the time and the resources and everything involved in making at minimum, an 8-year round trip.
Right.
Bare
I
minimum.
mean, I still believe that we still don't even know. Like I this Bob Lazar in the 80s when he came out and said all these
Right.
things, and
Yeah, I mean,
everyone said he was crazy.
Pretty much the same thing for a long time.
He talked about element 15, and everyone's like, "Oh,
It was like
sci-fi, you're
115
dumb,"
or something like that.
or 115, something like that. And guess what? A year ago, they're like, "Oh, guess what we discovered? Element 115." Blah blah blah,
Yeah, but
pretending
that
like it was
doesn't-
a thing that they discovered.
Yeah,
And
but
he
see,
said
here's the
this is
thing.
what was
That doesn't
running their
mean anything.
technology.
That doesn't mean a damn thing, though.
Right.
All that means is, he said eventually they'll be able to make, because that's what elements beyond like plutonium essentially
Mhm.
are on the periodic table. They're man-made elements, and they're not like
Right.
they're not discovered existing in nature. They make them.
Mhm.
All that's really saying is he threw out a number, and eventually they were able to create they were able to create an element that had that particular spot on the periodic table.
Well, then I say that I was at a secret base and they were showing me element 117.
Exactly.
But I mean,
that's exactly my point I'm making.
I mean, that's writing it off too much, right? When he's given out so many other things that has been proven to come true, except for them flying a spaceship in front of you. But I'm saying that I still believe that there's probably science or technology that we don't know about.
Oh, there is.
That maybe they're utilizing that we think universe runs on. They're like, it doesn't run on it.
Here's the thing. That argument, the science and technology, we're both making that same point.
Hmm.
I'm saying that it's more likely that we develop something we don't know about yet, broadly speaking. Some government scientists in a lab develop something that the rest of us don't know about yet. You're saying aliens develop something we don't know about yet. As far as something exists that we don't know about yet, we're both in perfect agreement about that.
Sure. I mean, I'm just applying it to. I'm applying it to like this instance, though. It's like, in my opinion, this technology is too far away for us to even be remotely close to. In my opinion. Possibly. And it would verify the existence of aliens coming down and wasting their time looking at us or poking and prodding us or doing nothing.
Again, though, it would necessarily imply that they have a cohesive and interested enough civilization to make a bare minimum 8-year round trip to go get a few facts. Because again, if they're just transmitting the information back, guess what? It still takes 4 years, bare minimum. Because that's limited by the speed of light. So either it implies a civilization that's really interested in long-term projects. Again, the star system of Alpha and Beta Centauri is the closest. The chances of the aliens coming from there, remote, because actually I'm not sure that it's it. I can't remember honestly that the planet around Beta Centauri, because it primarily orbits Beta Centauri, not Alpha Centauri. I can't remember for sure if it is in the habitable zone. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. Either way, it's basically Tatooine, and yet life is going to be have a tough time there. Let's say at the very least, because it's in a binary star system. So chances are it's coming from farther away. And again, I don't know how far away the next closest opportunity is, but it ain't the backyard. Put it simply. So to me, that either implies, again, a very ridiculously cohesive civilization that is interested in staying cohesive and interested in just knowledge for its own sake type projects for a very long time. Again, not impossible, but it's a leap of faith.
Well, I mean, it could
at
come
the same
from
time, or the other implication is that they would have some sort of faster than light technology, which again, we speculate about in sci-fi movies and novels, and that's about as far as we can get with it.
right.
So far. I mean not saying that it is impossible. I would never say that. But
Right.
we don't have any particular evidence that it is a thing yet.
Someone in the live comments here, it's like says, who says that they're from Earth-like planets, and also says, what if they can bend space somehow? Wormhole technology that
again,
science has speculated that there's
that's speculative that such a thing could be. That's the kind of thing that was speculated and said they could be done.
Mm-hmm.
Not that, we have no evidence that actually can be done. We've always just said, wouldn't it be? It's basically the kind of thing that people sit around with their alcoholic beverage of choice and say, wouldn't it be cool if? Scientists often engage in that same kind of speculation that we would engage in at the bar. They just dress it up in prettier terms, but it's the same damn thing.
Right. I guess he's not talking about wormholes, but he's talking about bending space somehow. But so let's say that wormholes or bending space or theories have come from being inspired by these aliens. Like, what if, these young kids are growing up and they're becoming scientists, and they're like who's ever come up with this theory? What if seeing or hearing about alien stories has made scientists think, hey, the speculation on how would someone come from that solar system or this solar system do that? Again, it could be that. It could be. I'm thinking about the cohesion from an entire planet. You're looking at on Earth. I mean, there's a few countries helping to run the space station, right? So you're kind of sharing your money. So mostly what if there's a few? Russia,
but yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, so there are some space agencies sort of kind of working together.
Yeah.
To be able to get off the planet because it's too expensive. What if a super advanced society who've been doing it longer, it doesn't have to be one whole planet. Maybe it's a few groups that are just like the money bags, you know what I mean? Have the technology, have whatever, if they use money, if they do the same thing that we do.
I'm going to give that a very hard no, only because, again, of the distances involved. Stars are far apart. Pretty much anywhere you go, stars are far apart, which means planets are far apart, which means civilizations are far apart.
Right.
The idea that there's a coherent a federation of planets, if you will.
Right.
I find that extremely strange credulity, because it implies a number of basically one planet civilizations coming together and, again, forming their own group that's interested, again, in long-term projects like that, which, if they're all right next to each other, like the star system, say, in Firefly, sure.
Right.
But as far as we know, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, as far as we know.
And well, yes, as far as we know.
A lot of everything is as far as we know. Like,
and that's fair. And that's a fair point. But
if we're believing there's inhabitable planets out there, but we can't get to them or see them.
But I'm trying to keep it in the realm of what we do know.
Right.
And a little bit of speculation slightly beyond that. But, and again, you're talking about star systems, that completely separate star systems that would be close together. That can't exist, basically, with multiple star systems that are like, let's just say, within like half a light year of each other. I don't think you could have multiple habitable planets of any kind that that would be able to exist in a situation like that, again, without faster than light technology. If you grant faster than light technology, all sorts of possibilities open up.
Right.
Absolutely. You have to
So
grant
if you were able to, who was it? The same guy here was talking earlier about, didn't they already go faster than light? They had a particle that did that. We have technology where they sent particle faster than light.
They did a teleportation experiment a while back. This was quite a few years ago now, where there was a subatomic particle that they somehow or another managed to effectively teleport.
Okay.
I don't know I don't recall the details of it, but it was a subatomic particle, and they did manage to teleport it. That actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Can that be scaled up? Possibly.
Right.
And obviously they're trying to do that. Will they be successful? I have no idea.
So it is possible if some, a small planet like us in the Federation, can take particle and do this little experiment. That's pretty cool. So, say a society that's way more advanced than us.
Right.
Do you think that they've already passed out that faster than
Possible.
light?
I mean, if again, possible.
Right.
Very possible. But until somebody transports in like an orange, I'm not going to get. I'm not willing to jump there just yet. Somebody manages to teleport an orange, then that's very much worth paying attention to,
Sure.
and upscaling that. Because if you can effectively transport an orange with no adverse effects, and I'm just randomly picking an orange just for no particular reason whatsoever. If you can do that, or let's just say a mouse, if you can do a mouse with no adverse effects, then there's
right.
It's hard to imagine any reason why you couldn't scale that up to literally anything.
Right.
So from a mouse to a person to a whale. At that point, it's just a matter of how big your transmitter and your receiver is.
Right. So if you have, say, like a 40-foot tic-tac ship that you're in, and it goes from 0 to 1,000 in about a second, and then you fly that home and you're not dead, would that be technology that didn't tear your atoms apart into nothingness?
Well, again, honestly, I think if there's something like, I think whatever that thing is, I think it's unmanned. I don't think there's any living critter within that thing.
Maybe. It could be someone in there if it's as big as an F-18.
Again, I think human or alien, I think that thing is unmanned. I don't think there's anything living within it, and that actually would make it a lot easier for any interstellar civilization to send probes out, because they're sending a probe. They're not sending people who have to deal with the various rigors of being in isolation for that length of time and everything.
Right. But if you're looking at
that's another thing to consider. The psychological effects, again, of sending just a tiny, small group of people any distance like that. That's a lot of isolation and everything. That's a lot of isolation from everything else and close proximity with just a handful to have to deal with. And again, that gets into the philosophical and theological. Are their natures fundamentally different than our own? I would argue no. But that's a different sort of conversation.
Sure.
And
tying that to
I think regardless, I think it's unmanned. Again, because of what I just said, and also because of the kind of directional and acceleration changes that we're talking about here. The idea that a living organism could withstand those kind of forces, the kind of G forces that would be involved there, unlikely, to say the least. Like I said, with what we already have, the human body is the limit. It's not the tech, it's the body.
Right. But I mean, if you're in a society that could counter that somehow. Like, in of course, when we go to space, there's no gravity, right? So we're floating around. You see it in movies. They have like gravity inside of their vehicles, and this theoretically we could do that, like you've seen in other shows where there's some kind of motion that helps the gravity in the ships. If you have a society that again can do deep space travel, who can maybe regulate the gravity inside as well, so when they go from 0 to 1,000 or whatever it is in a second, they're not ripped apart.
That's possible.
Looking at the kind of scout or drone from an alien ship theory, I mean, it's not connected to these videos that we're talking about, but people that have witnessed, like police officers, and I saw a story a couple months ago where the police officer said it was this silent, ginormous spacecraft above him, knocked all the power out, and he said it was like 4 football fields, and it made no sound and flew over him. And as soon as it reached a certain thing, all the cars came on, and then him and a few other officers were chasing it. And one guy got up onto a water tower. This is what the police were doing, apparently, with some binoculars, and looked at it. And he was telling his friends down below, I think half the police force was not working then, saying, dude, you should see this thing, blah, blah, blah. I thought that was really interesting, right? So if you have, because you're saying, yeah, it would suck to be in a 40-foot thing, you and me sitting there traveling for 4 years, we'd kill each other. But if you're on something that's on a massive scale, if that's true, what these hopefully not insane police officers saw, then, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many stories of that. So yes, I'm sure some things that are small or whatever, like I've seen stories where it's like these small balls or whatever. It's like, yeah, no one's going to fit in there for sure. So, I
mean, and you're basically saying there's a mothership.
Oh, yeah, I guess I would be saying a mothership, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, again, possible. But, that you still have the distances, you still have the resources involved and everything. That my primary issue with the alien argument is that there's too many ifs involved. If this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. That's my primary issue. And anytime you start piling ifs on top of ifs, it's like you way left the realm of actual fact, and you are just in speculation.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is speculation, right? Like those police officers don't know what that is in the sky.
The drone theory also is speculation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's absolutely clear. I just think there's fewer ifs that you have to pile on top of each other to get there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could say it's just like this and be done with it.
What's that?
Well, I can just say, well, it's just this and be done with it. But you can say, ifs aren't piling on unreasonable speculation. It's like answering the question. It's like, yeah, you're right. It could be this, but what if this?
Yeah.
It's just speculation. So I could have 100 what ifs. It doesn't mean that it's you know what I mean? It's still, we're still not
1,000 what ifs doesn't necessarily make it wrong.
No,
but it makes it less likely.
Well, I mean, it's just countering. If you say it wouldn't do this, and I say, but it could if this. You know what I mean? It's like, difference in technology. If you're someone who's going to believe that there's aliens visiting us, right? And I'm not saying that's 100%. All I'm saying is that I don't think that this technology is too good for what we are, regardless. I don't care if, we have the smartest scientists in the world living in Nevada right now making these crazy ships. There's no way. There is absolutely no way, in my opinion. But I think what happens is we're putting too much of this is what we know. On Earth, we're at the most advanced we've ever been, and this is the way science is, and this is the way the laws of the universe is. But maybe we don't know what the laws of the universe are. They're still discovering
I don't
different
think
things
we have
in
a
the
perfect
universe.
We don't. Let's again. I'll be clear. We do not have a perfect understanding of the laws of the universe. That is obviously clear because we have not figured out how to merge the macro with the. We haven't managed to merge the micro with the macro with the micro yet, which is Einstein and his theories of relativity, along with quantum mechanics. We have not figured out how to merge those two yet. So no, we do not have a perfect understanding of the laws of the universe by any means. Yet, I do think we do know what we know. Like,
Maybe.
I don't think, I think it's highly unlikely we're going to come up with something that contradicts what we know. We'll come up with things that amplify what we know, and they will be surprising, and they will probably uncover all sorts of things that right now we might consider completely, we might consider, well, magical, if you will.
Sure.
However, it's a might. I mean, right away you're starting with a might and an if. There's a couple of ifs and mights and maybes thrown into just that one step. And if you want to get to what's more likely versus less likely, I like the fewest amount of ifs and maybes as possible. Which again, doesn't necessarily say that if you pile 1,000 ifs on top of each other, you're wrong. But there's an every if is a variable.
Right.
Every if is a maybe. And it may be or it may not be. The fewer ifs and maybes you pile on top of each other, the more likely it is. Again, doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean that the one with more ifs and maybes is necessarily false. It just means likely versus unlikely.
Right. It just kind of feels like when someone sees something, they're like, wow, it did this and it took off and it was this massive thing, and they go, and then someone comes in and they go, we looked at it, it's a weather balloon. It's kind of the same feel. It's like, but it couldn't be a weather. But it couldn't be a weather balloon because it did this. Yeah, no,
I agree.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's kind of in that same realm.
That fits into any theory. The fact that they're obviously covering something up fits into anything.
Yes, the weather balloon always works. I use that all the time with my wife.
It's always a weather balloon is silly. It is
swamp gas.
I find that as likely as the explanation of it was a mass hallucination. No.
Yeah, I hate that one too.
Thing. You can't get three people to agree on what they saw right in front of them when they're sober half the time. You're gonna tell me that a bunch of people are tripping and manage to see the same damn thing? You, sir, are batshit crazy.
I tell you, I think I told you this story. Man, it must have been 6 months or more ago when we kind of touched on something. And I told you the story of my father-in-law, right? Who is now a retired police officer.
Mm-hmm.
When he was on the beat, he was doing a night shift, and he was, there's kind of a lot of rural areas, right? So he used to work for the Ontario Provincial Police, which would be like a state trooper, I guess, right? I don't know. And so he was in his car alone, and he was driving through. There's these small villages or towns, and he stopped, and he was just going to take a walk. He was going to look in the window of this antique store, and he gets out of the car, and he's kind of walking, and he notices this big light in the sky, but it was far. It was like a star, and he like Venus, just a little brighter. Not thinking anything of it, and he's looking, and he just noticed it was just too weird. So we stopped, and he's just staring at it, thinking, "This is really weird." And then it just came straight down at him, right over top of him. He was like 30, 40 feet above him, and it was as big as him. This light, and he just freaked out and jumped in his car, and he was bombing down this road back to the station, and it was on his tail. And then he gets in there, rips in, and he's running inside. And he wants to tell everyone. And then he's kind of gets inside the door and he's like, wait a minute. If I say something that they're going to think I'm crazy. So he just came in and there was a couple guys in there and they're at their desks and they kind of looked up when they saw him and they're staring at him. And he's just like, He goes and sits down and he's like, I'm not telling anyone anything.
Everything's
So he's kind of like pretending he's doing paperwork and he's like, okay. So he's like about half an hour or so. He's like, okay, I'm going to go back out. So he goes back outside, looks up, and then comes down again. It was just like a star, right? He's looking up at the night sky. He's like, guess it's gone. Comes right down again. So he bolts back in and he pulls one of the guys there. He knew enough where he's like, I think I can trust him if I tell him. So he pulls him into another room. And he's like, this is what I saw, blah, blah, blah. Explains it all to him. And the guy's like, okay, well, let's go outside. And then he went outside and there wasn't anything there. Like it didn't blast down on top of the two of them. But he never told anyone that. Like he didn't say anything to my mother-in-law for years because he thought she would think he was nuts and stuff. So, that's the one thing he said to me. Like, I totally believe that because like, and it scared him. And he actually didn't finish his shift outside. He finished it. He just stayed in the station.
He was like, yeah, I got paperwork.
Yeah, there was enough of that. It was rural. It's Canada. We're not blasting each other, so we're good. Maybe. So anyways, I thought that was always a really interesting story. So
that is a very
so the American government was messing with my father-in-law,
which I mean, they have. Anyway, you try to explain that. Sounds crazy.
Well, yeah.
I can't think of like an explanation that just like makes perfect sense. I can't. But
I'm just
but on the note of that story, I think that is a good spot to wrap it up. So, ladies and gentlemen, alien, drone, something else. I'd love to hear what you think. Drop a little note in the comments as far as what you think we're looking at here with that Pentagon footage, the Tic Tac UFO, and if you've got opinions on Bob Lazar, Commander, what's his name again?
Favor,
I
believe.
Which again, Top Gun graduate, all that, very credible individual, all that. Let us know. Are there even aliens out there? Let me know what you think. And on that note, I should tell you that I plan on taking next week off, and I'll be back the following week, May 16th, with you will know her on Twitter as Georgia Girl, and we're going to be talking about the validity of going 1776 on some people. So, on that note, you guys be good for the next couple of weeks. Stay away from the aliens, stay away from the COVID, and keep fighting the good fight.